The night was alive with the sounds of distant gunfire. Amina stirred in her bunk, her heart pounding an uneasy rhythm against her ribs. The air crackled with tension, a palpable fear that had become a constant companion within the concrete walls of Muzenze prison. For weeks the war with the M23 rebels had been closing in on Goma, casting a long dark shadow over their lives. Tonight the shadow felt closer, more menacing. Suddenly, a deafening explosion ripped through the night, followed by screams that echoed through the prison corridors. Panic erupted. Women scrambled from their bunks, their faces etched with terror. The guards, usually a symbol of authority, were now prisoners themselves, swept away by the current of chaos. Amina clung to a sliver of hope, even as the smell of smoke and the stench of fear filled the air. Through the barred window, Amina watched in horror as flames engulfed the men's section. The night sky turned a sickly yellow, reflecting the inferno that raged within. She could hear the roar of the fire, the desperate cries of men trapped inside, their pleas for mercy drowned out by the growing chaos. This was not just a prison break, it was a massacre unfolding before her very eyes. Amina knew she had to escape. The thought of being trapped, of burning alive, fueled her survival instincts. She joined the throng of women pushing toward the main gate, their collective fear a tangible force. The air was thick with smoke, making it difficult to breathe. She coughed, her lungs burning, her eyes stinging. Amina had not always been a prisoner defined by the rough cotton of her uniform and the suffocating confines of Muzenze. Before the war, before the accusations, before the miscarriage of justice that had stripped her of her freedom, she had been a schoolteacher. Her days were filled with the innocent chatter of children and the quiet satisfaction of nurturing young minds. She had been falsely accused of collaborating with the rebels, a whisper, a lie that had spiraled out of control. Her pleas of innocence fell on deaf ears. The judge, his eyes cold and indifferent, had sentenced her to 5 years. 5 years that had felt like a lifetime. 5 years that had transformed her from a woman of hope into a shadow of her former self. But as the fire raged around her, something within Amina snapped. The fear was still there, but it was now eclipsed by a fierce determination to survive. She had lost her freedom, her baby during childbirth in the prison, her name dragged through the mud, but she would not lose her life. Not tonight. She scrambled over fallen debris, her heart pounding against her ribs, her lungs screaming for air. The cries of the injured and the dying spurred her on. She would not become another forgotten victim, another casualty in a conflict that had consumed countless lives. She would live to tell her story. She would live to see justice served. Amina emerged from the inferno, her clothes torn, her face streaked with soot, but alive. She was one of the lucky few. As dawn broke, casting a pale light over the smoldering ruins of Muzenze, the true horror of the night revealed itself. The air was heavy with the stench of death. Amina, haunted by the memory of the inferno and the faces of those who had not escaped, made her way back to her village. The journey was fraught with danger. The roads were deserted, patrolled by soldiers and rebels who showed no mercy. She traveled by night, her bare feet whispering against the dusty ground, guided by the stars and the faint flicker of hope that kept her going. When she finally reached her village, she was met with a mixture of shock and disbelief. Her family, who had long grieved her as lost, welcomed her back with open arms, but their joy was tinged with sorrow. The war had taken its toll on the village, leaving behind a trail of shattered lives and broken dreams. Amina knew she couldn't just pick up the pieces and rebuild her life, not while the perpetrators of the Muzenze massacre still walked free, not while justice remained elusive. She had survived the fire, but her fight was far from over. She had a story to tell, a truth to expose, a responsibility to those who could no longer speak for themselves. Word of Amina's survival and her harrowing account of the Muzenze prison break spread like wildfire. Her story, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the indomitable will to survive, resonated with other survivors. They too had endured unimaginable horrors, their voices silenced by fear and trauma. Amina became a beacon of hope, a symbol of defiance against the darkness that threatened to consume them. She shared her story with journalists, human rights activists, and anyone who would listen. She spoke out against the injustices faced by women in a society ravaged by conflict, a society where their voices were often ignored, their stories dismissed. Her courage ignited a spark, inspiring other survivors to come forward and share their own experiences. Together they formed a collective voice that could no longer be ignored. They demanded justice for the victims of the Muzenze massacre, for the countless women who had been silenced by violence. They demanded accountability from those in power, from the rebels who had unleashed chaos, from the government that had failed to protect its citizens. Amina's journey from prisoner to survivor to advocate was a testament to the power of the human spirit to overcome adversity. She had emerged from the ashes of tragedy, not broken, but stronger, more determined than ever to fight for a better future. A future where justice prevailed, and peace would finally find a home in her troubled land.